So here's let's call him Steve. Here's Steve. Steve's in class and he wants to know what domain and range are. And in his mind, he has the answer, but he just wants to make sure that everything is true. So first, a lot of times, and a lot of students, they do have question on what domain and range actually are. They hear it a lot, but they don't know the meaning of it. A domain is a set of input values. So we'll call that X. And range is the set of output values. And we'll call that Y. To give you an example, let's just say we have something like f of x equals 2x plus 5. Well, if we look here, this is x. This is our input values. We're going to input something to get the function. Y will be represented as our function. So f of x can also mean y. So it's the same thing. So basically, our domain is anything that we can plug in for x to get something out for y. And that's what our domain and range are. So in this case, if we look at it, this would be a linear equation. So we can go ahead and graph it on a line, and we would see that we start at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We start here, and we go up to over 1. You can watch some lessons on graphing lines to understand what that means, but as we can see, the domain is going to be anything where our values or x can be a value. In this case, our domain, and we're dealing with x's, can be all real numbers. So that's what we want to know when we have to identify our domain and range. It's what x values can we input to get an output. In this case, we can input any number. We can input an infinity amount of numbers to get an output. And our range would be what numbers can actually get an output. So what can we have for an output? Looking at this line, we can see that our range can be all real numbers. So I do super R, you might just have to write all reals. But that's what domain and range are. Domain is our input values, and when they ask you what is your domain, it's anything you can actually plug in to get an output. And with our range, it's basically anything that can have an output, to kind of explain it further. Now, if you want more details on domain and range, and we can go further into it, we can see where some things won't always be all real numbers, and why we might have limitations on our domain and range. But when we're dealing with just linear lines, that's what our domain and range actually would be.